stuck? Is something holding you back? Are there obstacles in your way? Well, let's smash through those obstacles so that you can live your best life. Hi, I'm Matt Brooks, founder of Matt Brooks Coaching, and I'm fascinated with how people overcome barriers and achieve success. Join me for insights, strategies, and inspiring stories as we explore practical tips and powerful tools to unlock your full potential. This is the Barrier Busting Podcast. Well, okay, we're back. Hi, I'm Matt Brooks. Welcome back to the Barrier Busting Podcast. I am excited to continue this series on pivoting, where I'm getting the great opportunity to talk to some really interesting people who have done pivots in their life and find out from them how they approached it, how they came to that decision, and the challenges they've had while doing it. My guest today has what I would call more of a traditional kind of pivot for those people that pivot. But it is still nonetheless a pivot, and it has a lot of challenges to it. And you have to figure out if you want to even take the leap. And it takes a lot of courage. And she also had a few minor pivots earlier on in life, so we're going to talk about all that. My guest today is Norma Caiazza, who has recently pivoted from public school teacher to realtor. Norma spent 30 years as a public school music teacher and theater director, who during the last 5 years of her tenure as a teacher also began her life as a real estate agent. Norma's success is in part the result of finely honed creativity, communication, and education skills, which she utilizes every day to guide her clients through the process of buying and selling homes. And her work has resulted in multi-millions of dollars in sales, earning her recognition as part of the Coldwell Banker Diamond Club and consistently ranking in the top 10 realtors in her East Greenwich, Rhode Island office. As a certified accredited buyer's representative, senior real estate specialist, and At Home with Diversity professional, Norma is committed to serving a wide range of clients with both expertise and care. Norma holds a bachelor's degree in music education from Vandercook College of Music in Chicago, a master's of music education from North Florida State University, a master's in performance as an opera singer, which is pretty interesting, from the University of Michigan, and is just a few credits shy of her doctorate of musical arts, also from the prestigious University of Michigan School of Music, Theater, and Dance. Wow, that's a lot. Norma, it's great to have you here. Welcome to the show.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Well, it's really interesting to me that you've had some interesting pivots here, and I want to start with going from teaching to real estate isn't exactly, as I said, like an uncommon pivot, but first, you went from teaching in Florida and then moving to Michigan to teach to opera singing and then back to teaching. Tell us a bit about that and in particular how you made your decisions to pivot.
Of course. Well, I always wanted to be a music teacher. Started out at the Florida School for the Blind and enjoyed the job a lot, but went back to school for a master's degree because it was, of course, paid for by my institution. So why not? And I started taking voice lessons and I really loved singing, and was told I had a talent for it. So I decided I was going to go back to school to explore opera, and continued my teaching in Michigan so that I could get in-state tuition, where I then went on and started my grad degree.
Well, if I'm right, can I jump in? If I'm right, that University of Michigan school is a top 10 school in the country. Like, you don't get into that if you're just singing. You got to be really good, right?
I did a little something, something.
A little something. Excellent.
Yeah. So, I mean, I was encouraged. I was a vocal talent that was encouraged. So I definitely, put a lot into it and decided I was going to go for it. It was probably my first big pivot. Mm-hmm. Leave teaching. I quit my job in Florida without a job in Michigan. Came to Michigan, found a job, to work for a year because, of course, U of M is not cheap.
Okay, so wait a minute. I want to stop right there. So you decided you wanted to go to Michigan to study opera, and then as part of a strategy to do that, move to Michigan to teach there to get in-state tuition, right?
Correct.
All right. See, this is what I'm talking about. You got to have a strategy. You got to have a plan, and that's a great plan because I can just imagine how much money that saved you.
Yes, it saved a great deal of money, and that really was the advice from my then vocal teacher who was at the University of Michigan at the time, Leslie Gwynn, said, you don't have to come here right away. We can study privately for a year. while you get in-state tuition. So it just kind of really worked out.
That's very cool. So what happened to opera?
So, well, I graduated with a degree, and I ended up doing an audition tour in Europe. Was recently married, did an audition tour in Europe, and I decided that I didn't want to be after doing it for a bit. I decided I did not want to be a 70-year-old woman by myself in a hotel room
Uh-huh.
anymore. I decided what I really wanted to be is I wanted to be a mom. And I wanted to be a present mom, not traveling all the time.
Well, it's funny you talk about this because I do know one opera person who told me once that his address is a P.O. box in Chicago. He just lives in hotel rooms. He's never home. I don't think people realize the sacrifices that performers in professions like that make. They just don't have a normal life, right? And you have twins. Right. You wanted to be a mom, and you got 2 for 1, didn't you?
I did. I got 2 for 1, a boy and a girl, one-stop shopping.
Nice. That must have been hard, though, right?
It was hard, but it was easy all at the same time. I mean, I really wouldn't change it. And it was the right choice for me, and it was at the right time. But it meant, I have a wonderful husband who has a wonderful job, but it wasn't going to be able to we weren't going to have twins on one income with me traveling.
Yeah.
So what was the easiest thing for me to do was to go back to teaching. And we did move to the East Coast where I could sing and teach at the same time. But certainly being a mom and my full-time job took priority for me. And singing kind of took a side gig job.
Sure. Okay. Well, all right. Let's now jump ahead 25 years because you're there in Rhode Island and you're teaching and you're doing the high school musicals, I understand, right? Which is that's a big job right there. So you're doing all that for 25 years and you decide that you can see your retirement in sight. You know it's going to be 5 years from then. And somehow you go, hey, real estate. Let's do real estate, right? First of all, how did you decide real estate? I mean, how was it that you decided after I retire, I still want to work and what I want to do is work in real estate?
So it wasn't like just all at once deciding that. I started noticing that one of my favorite things to do, like when we'd take rides, when our kids would nap in the back seat and would be, driving down all these country roads and would see open house signs. And I would tell my husband, can you just pull over? Because I want to go in and take a look at this house. Because
I'm sure he loved that.
Yeah. Nobody loved it but me. I used to just really like just going into looking in open houses. I thought it was fascinating to see how different people lived and what different houses looked like.
Sure. Okay.
It came a time where my in-laws and mother-in-law was going to need to come and live with us. So we were going to have to sell our house and get a new house. And a friend referred a real estate agent to me. And this real estate agent and I became friends. And she goes, if you're this interested in it, you should think about checking out, getting certified, getting a license. And, it planted the seed in my brain and I started thinking about it.
Interesting. I want to say to my clients listening right now that learn something from that. You never know. Someone might just pass you by and say a quick something, but if you're really in tune with it, it could really mean something for your life, like this did for you, right?
Right. And it's not even something I did right away, because at the time our kids, were getting ready to finish elementary school and go to high school. And so it's not like it was something that I was going to apply right away. But certainly my brain wrapped around it and thought about it. I mean, HGTV started coming on. I started watching those shows. And then both of my kids, having twins, they were both out of high school at the same time. I'm by myself, and we're empty nesters, and I'm teaching. And it's not that I had a whole lot of other time, but I was like, maybe now I want to go back to singing. Maybe now I want to try something else. Maybe now I want to do something. And it wasn't necessarily a plan for after I leave teaching at first, but it was like, what is it that Norma really enjoys doing and wants to do with her life? Because I'm not going to sit here and cry because my kids are gone now.
Right. Okay.
So that's kind of how it started. And then during the summer, I decided maybe I could the licensing classes and see where it lies.
Well, and
And
that's
that's
because ultimately you did start to devise the strategy, though, right? You did
exactly.
go, okay, I'm gonna hook into this, right? So, and but you're still working. So you just brought up taking classes. What's it like taking classes, 20, 30 years after you finish college and you go back to taking classes? I mean, I've done it. I could answer this question, but I want to hear it from your perspective. I mean, what was it like learning the ropes also in your off hours? Because you had an exhausting job. I don't think people realize this. I have a friend who's a middle school choir teacher. She sees 450 people a week, 450 students a week. This is not 25 students in a classroom. This is, in middle school, you put 50 of them in a room and it's just mass chaos, right? So she's exhausted when she comes home. You come home and you're taking classes and learning the ropes. What was that experience like?
It absolutely was exhausting and it was challenging. And at an older age, you question whether it's something you actually can do. What the other thing that I noticed though that was really crazy is because I don't know, maybe because I was seasoned or had spent time doing other things and was kind of thinking about other things I might want to do. I was kind of in shock at how for granted some of the people who were in the class with me were. Like, in other words, I don't know that they had the same kind of drive or ambition that I had. It was almost as if, yeah, this is what I'm going to do now because this is what I'm supposed to do now, but not a given choice.
I went back to school in my retirement to get a master's degree in social work, and I was planning to be a clinician, as most people I've told on this show. And I had the exact same experience. First of all, can I do this? I mean, Mike, come on, it's been 30 years. Can I really pull this off? And then I find myself in a really hard degree. And I'm sorry to say, but I wiped the floor with these kids. I just did. And there was something about the fact that I was coming back to school because now I've been to grad school twice, once in my 20s, once in my 50s. And my grades, everything were 1,000-fold better in my 50s because, yes, you have that life experience now, which does pay off. And it does add up to something. Those of you who think old people are old and should be discarded. And it did bring me a different perspective in terms of how I went to school. I mean, I was all in. This was what I was going to do now, right?
Right.
Right.
Exactly. And not only are you all in, but you have like a thirst for it, a hunger for it that maybe you just didn't understand when you were younger
Exactly.
or took for granted. You definitely took for granted.
Well, you hit on it
Um,
a minute ago. I think when we're younger, we're doing it because we think we should be doing it. When we're
right.
older, we're doing it because we've fully decided to commit that we want to do this. And I'm not saying everybody young hasn't fully decided to commit, but it's more common at that age to be like, okay, what should I do? I should do this. Okay, I'll take classes for this and I'll get a degree in that. But there's a different type of hunger when you're our age.
Right. Agreed. And it's not in I mean, I remember loving being in school when I was young. It's just when you go back with all these other experiences, you realize all the mistakes that you made, even if you were successful
And you're better
in the
equipped, I
beginning.
think. You're better
Right.
equipped for the
Yeah, you're
learning.
just
Yeah.
better equipped.
All right, so you're doing all this. It's a lot of work, but you've mentioned to me that COVID actually helped you out in this process, right? How did
It
COVID?
did.
I mean, because it didn't help a lot of people. So how did COVID? We want to hear a COVID success story. So hit us with that.
A COVID success story. Well, so sure, our my teaching classes were all online, and they all had to kind of be pre-recorded, so you could do it at your own time. It wasn't live. Most of our assignments were given, and then you just go back and check on them. So there was a lot of free time, and so I took that time to do all kinds of market analysis and all kinds of extra classes. That's why I have all those initials after my name because I was able to I was able to take additional classes, and everything was offered online. So I was able to just kind of dive in. I was able to take the chances of making phone calls that I wouldn't normally be able to
Okay.
do, and
Okay.
just use the time.
Cool. Cool. All right. Well, all right. Now, I got to ask you real quick. I've been doing a couple of episodes on pivoting, and I classified 3 reasons for people to pivot. I want to, I need to, and I have to. And I see you hovering between I want to and I need to, right? And can you talk us about why you wanted to and why you needed to?
Sure. I wanted to because, of course, I was interested in the subject, and because I feel strongly that teachers should be retiring, and if they started young in their 50s. And I was getting to the point where I love my students, I love teaching, but I could see the value in somebody new coming in and taking over. A lot of things were frustrating me about the way education was changing and evolving, and it was changing and evolving in a way I wasn't necessarily willing to go.
And you're not the
So
first person to say this to me, by the way, including on
I'm
this
sure
podcast series, someone else who pivoted from teaching said
I'm
the
sure
same
you've
thing.
heard it
Yeah.
from any of your teacher clients that you work with. I'm sure all of us have said the same thing. You know, if you started teaching in the 80s as I did, it's just a whole different ballgame. And it's just not something I was wanting to do for a whole lot longer. Not only that, I don't feel like I was serving the students, as well as somebody who is much more relevant would be.
Well, there's some humility for you. Nice.
But that's the truth. So but I certainly, like, teacher's pension is not a it's not necessarily going to fulfill the kind of retirement I want.
Right.
So not only that, but I'm a pretty energetic person. I'm not the kind of person who is just going to sit here with my cats and knit and my tea. Although I love doing that, don't get me wrong. I knew I had to do something else. So I not throw myself into something that I've always just kind of loved.
Well, see, I like this because your need to, as far as I can distinguish, is not because you needed to because you had to get out of the job, or not because you needed to because you really needed money, even though that was part of it. Your need to was to fulfill yourself. This is something I'm working on with my clients. You know, your need to was to recognize what you need to live a happy life. And you said you're an energetic person. You need to keep busy. You're not going to sit at home and crochet, right? And so I think that's really important for the listeners to hear, that need to can also be about self-fulfillment, not necessarily needing to fill your bank account or needing to leave a job because it's miserable. All right, you had a long and distinguished career, and all of a sudden you find yourself as a rookie again, right? And I had a
Yep.
little experience with this with some internships where I was like the rookie intern again, and I was still 20 years older than everybody I was interning for, you know?
Yep.
And, you know, in your training and the learning, whatever, there was some apprenticing I'm sure that you had to do. So talk about the experience of, you know, finding yourself after a distinguished career, being a rookie again.
Wow. That is a very difficult, but a very exciting position to be in,
Interesting,
because
exciting. Why?
because you're learning something new every day. And you're learning something new with a whole different wisdom, as we talked about before in classes. So, with real estate, you don't really have an apprenticeship. It's not like you have student teaching or you have clinical or anything like that. You literally, okay, you've passed the test, and now you can go out and figure out who your clients are,
Mm-hmm.
and how you're going to sell somebody's house or how you're going to help a buyer. And that's it.
Wow.
So I felt like I was, somewhere out there, just kind of all by myself. But I had an amazing manager, and then this realtor that kind of pushed me into the field to really pick the phone up and call constantly. And I was able to I made mistakes. I was able to call up and say, okay, I screwed this up. What do I do?
Well, that's one of the tenets I talked about pivoting in my first episode on this was seek mentorship. Be humble enough to seek mentorship when you're pivoting in your 50s, because as much as we've learned in our lives, we don't know everything. And it's terrible to be out there guessing on your own, right?
Right. And you don't want to, when you're talking about, there are very few fields, but that you could not mess somebody's life up, but you don't want to screw up somebody's home purchase.
Sure.
Or home sale,
Yeah.
So it's just really important, regardless of your field, I think, when you're doing something new, especially when you don't have those safeguards in place, is to have a couple people near you that you really trust, that are just a phone call, or a door knock away, where you can say, hey, listen, this happened. I need to know how to handle this situation. Or what would you do if you made this mistake?
I can relate to this because in my clinical internship, I worked in a private practice and I had patients, and they basically just threw me in the pool. Just go. And I was like, wait a minute, what do I mean, my first client said to me, I want to kill myself. That was the first thing out of her mouth. And I'm like, whoa, hold time out. What do I do? And I would say, there's a certain gravitas to this where I don't want to be guessing. I want to know what I'm doing. And so I had to, like you, I had to seek that mentorship out. I really had to like be aggressive to find that. Well, this is a great place to take a quick break. We've got much more with Norma when we come back, but real quick, her website, you can check her out on www.normacaiazzahomes.com. And Caiazza is spelled Caiazza. So it's normacaiazzahomes.com. Back with more with Norma in just a minute.
Feeling overwhelmed? Struggling to find balance in your daily life? At Matt Brooks Coaching, we get it, and we can help. With over 25 years of nonprofit executive experience and an MSW with a clinical focus, Matt Brooks offers personalized coaching designed to help you rise above your challenges and live your best life. Whether you aim to advance your career, enhance your skills, or simply find more clarity and peace, Matt is here to be your partner and ally. Visit mattbrookscoaching.com to book your free discovery session today. Take the first step towards a brighter tomorrow.
Okay, we're back. I wanted to ask you, so now you're officially retired and you're full-time doing this, and let's start right from when you retired and started full-time doing this. What new skills did you suddenly discover you needed to learn? Because now you're in business essentially for yourself, even though you're working for I don't know what you call it. You don't call it a practice, you call it
a brokerage.
A brokerage,
yeah.
Okay. So you're working for a brokerage, but really everybody that's working for a brokerage is in business for themselves. So you've got to now deal with all that. So what took you out of your comfort zone? What really, stretched you?
Everything.
Everything.
Everything. I've been a teacher for years, and from 7:15 to 8:30, I have concert choir, and from everything was scheduled for me.
Very structured.
Very structured. I knew what I was doing. If you told me, Norma, you asked me, Norma, what are you doing at 12 on a Wednesday? I could tell you what I was doing. Now there's no structure. The structure that there is structure I make for myself. And I've never in my entire life, because either I've been a student or a teacher for all but a very short portion of time when I was a mom to little ones, I've always had my schedule dictated to me. So now all of a sudden I'm dictating my own schedule. I'm figuring that out myself. Not only that, but when I have a class of students, I get a roster. Those are my students. No one has handed me a roster of houses to sell,
right,
or buyers to find houses for. I have to go out and find those. A lot of people are under the misconception that when you sign on with a brokerage like Coldwell Banker, that they're going to hand you referrals, and that, if these people like you, they'll hire you. Nobody gives you a referral, from the brokerage. Maybe on a rare occasion, if you're in the office and somebody happens to walk in, will you get that? So you're literally making phone calls or paying a referral firm to give you referrals, or trying to get to know people in the community and do reach out all on your own. And that is just like so far out of my initial comfort zone, and certainly my skill set that I've had for years and years. So I'm learning how to schedule myself. I'm learning how to market myself. I'm learning how to do all of those things. It was a huge learning curve, and which I am still working on a daily basis.
Are you struggling at all with social media?
Huge struggle with social media.
Yeah.
And I understand that is the key to success, but I got to tell you that I'm very intimidated by it. And every day I've had days where I really need to do this. I can't do it. I'm going to do it tomorrow. I really need to do this. I can't do this. I'm going to do it tomorrow.
Well, I'm with you 100% because I'm having the same problem. I mean, it wasn't that I wasn't on some social media for a while there, but, heck, I went through my first master's degree without a computer. We didn't have so, I mean, and then I, got on social media for a while and kind of got turned off, right? And so stepped away from it. And now, yes, to make the business that I'm running work, I have to be a regular presence on social media, which not only means I have to be on it, I have to create engaging posts. And, it's like, and I, like you, I have a lot of skills, but that marketing thing, that selling myself thing is just not, it doesn't come natural at all. And I really have to work for it. So I feel your pain there, but also this interesting point you brought up of suddenly you have no rigid schedule to follow. You have to make your own schedule. Tell me I'm wrong when I say it's pretty easy in that situation to sometimes sit in that chair drinking tea and crochet longer than you really should have, right? It's hard sometimes to motivate yourself day in and day out. There is no other force motivating you. It's just you got to do it, right?
It absolutely is. And I tell you, the first month was like, I'd have coffee and my coffee would turn into a couple of hours of coffee. A couple hours of, I'll get to this. Maybe I'll do that.
I know nothing about this, just what I'm saying. I know nothing about what you're saying.
So now I've started making, I actually listened to one of your podcasts about making some small changes.
Thank you.
I believe it was one of your very first ones and it inspired me.
Wow.
To start making some habits. Because I think that it's that was exceptionally wise advice that you gave. So now I have a habit. My Roomba starts at 9 a.m. and I find it exceptionally irritating. So at 9 a.m., when that Roomba goes off, that is my cue. Go to the gym.
That is exactly what I was talking about in my podcast. I wish I knew that example, though. I mean, she's talking about the second episode I published where I talked about building good habits and developing cues. Oh my God, the Roomba! I wish I never thought of that. Brilliant.
Yeah. So now that gets me out of the house to the gym, and then once I'm done at the gym, I'm going to devote at least 3 hours to something real estate.
Okay.
At least 3. And then I can take a break and then I'll go back to it. So it has really helped me to I've really had to almost force myself for a schedule. Now with real estate, sometimes you get calls to show houses at unusual times and there has to be some flux in it. But the standard schedule of every day, is what I struggled with. And I'm making inroads on a daily basis. But it is true that you really do have to kind of change it by habit, one at a time. It's not going to all happen at once.
Remember what I said in that episode, 1% changes, little changes. We always fail at New Year's resolutions because we just aim too big. We aim too high and little changes. And then once those become automatic, you move to the next one. Well, that's great. Oh my God. I am so excited. Somebody listened to my show. That alone
of course,
is
there
amazing.
Are several
no,
of
I'm
us.
kidding.
We have coffee every morning. We talk about
well, actually, no, the show's starting to pick up steam, so I'm pretty happy about that. And thank all the listeners for doing that. How did you find, even though your career was in music and teaching and real estate is so different, what kind of things from your long and professional career, what kind of experience has really paid off for you that you have been able to, transfer over to this new endeavor?
I would say the biggest element that I've been able to transfer, well, there are two, but one of the largest is when you're an opera singer, you also have to act. And then in teaching, I taught drama. And I find myself as a real estate agent in some uncomfortable situations. I'm kind of, I'm not that I'm a quiet person, but I'm certainly not a confrontational person or I've never, I guess I use my acting skills to allow me to negotiate like I believe a negotiator should negotiate. Even though Norma isn't a negotiator, Norma knows how to plug into the acting.
That's brilliant.
Not that I'm not sincere, but I have to use that end.
Sure. Oh my God, I wish I thought of that because I could do a little bit of that too. That's a brilliant approach. It's just reprogramming your brain to look at it from a different angle.
Correct. So I can take on the persona of a negotiator. It doesn't have to be Norma. I mean, yes, Norma's there, but I use that. I use that a lot in real estate when I'm negotiating the best price for my buyer, or when I'm helping sell my seller's beautiful home. And I have to use those skills that I've learned. Also, as an educator, teaching people don't understand a lot of things about real estate.
Oh, sure.
And I feel like I can come at it from the educational standpoint of view. But those are the two skills that I really feel have fared me very well.
That's interesting too. And the educational point of view, because a lot of people in a lot of professions that have to work with people who don't know their work aren't really good at explaining it, right? They throw out a lot of technical terms like I know that when I'm with doctors sometimes they'll use overly technical terms and I have no idea what they're saying. And I'll say, I'm sorry, they didn't teach that day that I was in college. I must have missed that day, because I think it's really important for us as professionals to recognize that the people we work with didn't study like we did. So it's incumbent upon us to find a way to make them comfortable, learn what they need to learn without it being oppressive or making them feel small for not knowing the language, right? So I'm sure as a teacher, that's a great thing. Okay, I want to finish up with one last thing because we're almost out of time. For those that are listening right now who are considering a pivot in their lives, and there's all kinds. There's people who are considering a pivot because they have to. There's people that need to. There's people that want to. But a pivot is a pivot. Regardless, in my opinion, regardless of the reasons why you are going to pivot, it's a pivot. And it takes a lot of elements that we've talked about. What advice can you give them? I've given them my advice, but I like to hear it from other people too who've lived this. What advice can you share with people about, making a decision to pivot or doing the pivot, or I don't know. Tell us what you can share.
I think the biggest issue is to get out of your own head and just do it. I think a lot of times you try to talk yourself, well, what if I don't find any clients, or what if I don't like it there, or what if this doesn't fit this particular need of mine? The fact is you really don't know until you just dive in. You just have to go for it. If it's something you're interested in, there's something there. So I think a lot of times we talk ourselves out of trying things that we really want to try.
Norma, I got to say,
afraid of what the end's going to be.
I got to say, you could be a life coach. I've heard a lot of it today. You could really do a great job with that. But I think that's the best advice I've heard so far, is get out of your own way. Take the risk. Just jump in the pool. Why not? What's the worst that could happen, right? And we do stop ourselves with lots of things in life. And those things, to be fair, happen because of negative experiences we've had throughout our whole lives. A lot of things that are popped into our heads from our childhood and throughout our lives make us a little more reluctant and a little reticent in a lot of different situations, and make us talk ourselves into staying away from things. You're just damn right. Take the plunge, just do it. So, wow, what a great episode. I can't thank you enough for being here, Norma. Thank you.
It's been a thrill.
Yeah, remember to visit her at www.normacaiazzahomes.com. She's in Rhode Island, so if you're looking for a home in Rhode Island, she's your girl. She will do a great job for you. Everybody, I've got next week, I think it is, I've got a recruiter coming on, and we're going to talk about what we need to know from a recruiter's perspective about pivoting, not only in our lives in general at any age, but also in particular if we're going to pivot after 50, which is a whole different thing. So thank you all for listening. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please hit the follow or subscribe button so you'll know when we drop new episodes. Also, I want to put this out to you. If you're listening and you have an idea for a topic you'd like me to cover, I want to invite you to shoot me an email at matt@mattbrookscoaching.com. Matt@mattbrookscoaching.com. You spell Matt with 2 T's, by the way. But send me your ideas. I'd love to hear from you, and maybe we'll get some great ideas, and I will do my best to do great shows for you on that. But in the meantime, thanks again to Norma Caiazza. Thank you all for listening. Be well, and I'll catch you next time on the Barrier Busting Podcast.